Good afternoon to all of you. Welcome to PA Day, 64th PA Day. So those of you who didn't get it right, 1960 we started. Not 61, not 91, and not 66, okay? 1960. And in fact, it is the very day today, 1st July 1960. So we are almost 65 years old. And I think we celebrated in a number of ways. You saw the different types of activities that we had, some quite innovative, quite novel. The one that caught my attention was the head massage. So I want to know whether it's still on. Maybe we can do that. But PA Day, besides being a day of fun and celebration and coming together over nice makan and a fun afternoon like this, that is the key part of how we celebrate PA Day. But PA Day is also an opportunity for us to come together and sort of take stock about how far we have come, what we have done, and to reflect a little bit about what the journey ahead means for us. For many of us been here, I look around this room, many of us have been here for a long time at PA, serving PA in different capacities. But I think it's an opportunity to look forward and to think of how PA can relate to Singapore. Ultimately, PA was started in 1960 when then Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew, after he won the elections in 1959, decided very early on in his leadership that we need to have a strong sense of cohesion in our society. Why? Because at that time, just before 1965, when we were independent, it was a very different nation, one that was forged together really by circumstances, multiracial, multi-ethnic, but the sense of multi-ethnic and multiracial back then is not like today. Today, we enjoy multiracial, multi-ethnic peace and harmony. Back then, there was a lot of conflict, there was a lot of strife, and you were not sure how relations were on the ground. So the whole concept of grassroots organizations and grassroots leaders and grassroots relations with residents was quite a different thing then. But while it may have been a different thing then, I think the concept and the whole mind share and psyche about it remains the same. Today, we are 60 odd years later, but the challenges remain the same. We must still be an organization that is relatable to our people, relevant to their aspirations, and able to help them navigate life journey. That ultimately boils down to what we serve our public for. So this year's PA Day is also a very importantly notable one, because for the first time in some years, and only for the third time in our history, we have changed our chairman. So we have a new Prime Minister a couple of weeks ago, new leadership, same direction. Last week I was in US and I had a dialogue with the US ASEAN Business Council, and it's made up of a lot of prominent US businesses who are invested in ASEAN. Many of them are in Singapore. So, of course, as you know, the US just had their Trump-Biden debate, going to have the elections on November 5th. And, of course, all about leadership, change, what does the new leader bring about for the country? All of that is top of their mind. So they asked me, what does it mean now for you to be in a cabinet? One day was one prime minister, another day is a different prime minister. And I said to them, actually, it's the same. What is remarkable about Singapore's leadership transition is that it is really quite unremarkable. That we have peace, we have harmony, we have stability in the way we change. And I think that also represents the direction that PM Wong has now set. But at the same time, we are taking over this, he's taking over this leadership in a very difficult situation. Geopolitically around the world, lots of challenges. People are fighting over everything: identity, race, ethnicity, gender, sexuality, the haves, have-nots, young, old, everything. Every time you can find a divide, people fight over the divide. So we are taking over in a very difficult situation. Unity, cohesion, resilience, and having space for everyone to thrive, to aspire, to meet their aspirations, to live their lives, improve their lives, all of these are top of mind challenges for us. So as we move forward, we must think about what PA's efforts will be. We will have to change, evolve, in order to serve a new generation of Singaporeans. Our Community 2030 plan will unfold PA's next chapter. It is a blueprint for our direction. And I'll speak about this a little bit more now, just to give you a bit of detail. I spoke about this at last year's COM seminar and explained that it is really social cohesion, demographic changes, all that I've outlined about changing aspirations and changing needs of the economy and people that we need to look after. So we also need to morph. So our constituency officers, our programs, the way we relate to people, the way we devise our schemes, our activities, all that has to change and evolve to the needs of a new generation of citizens. I will set out Community 2030 directions in more detail at this year's COM seminar later, but I wanted to quickly outline to you three major points. One is the need to have more participation. What do I mean by that? We need to have, you see, in the past, you set up a CC, people will come because we have, in those days, no one had newspapers at home, no one had TVs at home. You come to the CC as a gathering point. There was a real need to be at the CC in order to keep up with news, meet your friends, and enjoy recreation. Today, there are lots of other challenges. So people don't need to come to the CC for that reason. But nonetheless, we need to set up and have a platform that is able to engage with a new genre of residents. One who might not need the CC in the same way, but still we want to make sure that that becomes a focal point in the community. So participation, volunteer schemes for wider groups, wider segment of residents, different ways of offering volunteerism, and different ways in which they can volunteer with us, all are going to be important. Second, as a consequence, the way we organize ourselves at PA and the structures that we have will have to be future ready. I'm sure those of you who come to dialogues with me, with our grassroots leaders, with MESRA, with NAPANI, with 6CMs and so on, will know that many of them have asked questions. It is still relevant today to have MEAC and IAAC, WEC, SCECs, and all the different Cs. Is this still relevant today? And I think those are valid questions to be asked, because those are structures that we have maintained from the past. They have served us well, but we have to ask ourselves continually whether or not they still remain refreshed, they still remain relevant for today's organization. We will think about all those points and decide whether or not we need to make changes to our own structures. Third, beyond structures, I think we have to also relook at our overall infrastructure. I mentioned the CCs just now. Today, we are no longer just building standalone CCs if you have a choice. For those older CCs, maybe no choice because they've been located by themselves. But when we have a choice now, we redevelop it into a more integrated function with existing community nodes. That, I think, gives us the best reach for the CC. In the past, it was, you build a CC, you no other choice, you go there. But today, I think we try and make it more expansive. So infrastructure is one thing. But also the way we harness technology in our own infrastructure needs. How we use AI, how we use technology, how we enable technology for our officers on the ground, and how we allow our residents and our grassroots leaders to interact with us through technology will also be relevant. For today, let me focus on the first point. Okay, we'll develop our plans and I'll share them with you. But for today, I wanted to go down and drill down a little bit more about what I've said previously about participation. Participation, if you listen to PM Lawrence, he spoke about it at Forward SG, he's made some speeches about it. Participation is now key. We can't do this alone. In the past, 1G, 2G, as a government, and I don't just mean the cabinet, I mean right through all the different structures of government. You have, at that time, a difference in terms of the government and the population. Why? Because we are a new nation, just starting up, just setting up. There's a gap. There was a gap. Today, the gap isn't quite so perceptible. The education level of our population has gone up tremendously, which is very good. But it also means that not all the good ideas will sit with government. And that's really the core reason why we want more participation. Because partnership between government and our private sector, government and our people, will mean that we all as a country will level up. It used to be that when you had a Lee Kuan Yew, founding prime minister, there was a lot that he was doing. The population was really a lower educated population. It was a harder population in terms of living standards, education standards, healthcare standards, and so on. But today it's quite different. So I think we do need to harness the talent and harness the involvement of people around us. So in the same way as People's Association, I think we need to make sure that we also develop new pockets, new buckets in which people can partner with us and work with us and take part and be more participatory in nature. So we've had formal volunteering. You look at grassroots leaders, volunteers, community partners. We've set up all of these over the last couple of years. You look at Abdullah. I don't know whether you can see the words. Can you? Can, from the back. You see Abdullah Olsen and SPCA on screen, all working in different ways, different sectors, touching lives in different ways, and engaging with our residents. And I think we need to take this approach where we broaden this whole scheme. You take volunteers as an example. It started because we realized that people no longer come to us to volunteer based on our structures. They don't come and say, I want to be in MAAC or IAAC, or I want to look after women, so I'll be in WEC, or I want to look after senior citizens, so I'm in SCEC. Those were useful, as I said back then, but today people don't come and instinctively think of that. They want to volunteer based on their passion and their causes. Like, we get lots of people coming to clean the beach, especially now with the oil spill. They will come and do it. You don't have to have an oil spill EC, but people will come because never mind whether you have a GRO or not, it is their passion, their cause. Likewise, those who look after low income, yellow ribbon, ex-offenders, disability groups, and so on. So there will be a passion that will spark the reason for the volunteerism, and we must be prepared to partner with them. And that's why we set up the volunteers. But there will also be informal or casual or occasional or ad hoc or even the sporadic volunteer. And I think it is also important for us to keep that within our broader framework. Our broader parameters must also include them. So for example, neighbors watching out for one another, people coming forward to lend a hand, looking after the vulnerable amongst us. Just now you saw one of the questions in Kahoot, what was PA's involvement? Bukit Ho Swee fire, SARS, haze, COVID. All of this is important. But actually beyond this, I'm sure every one of you would have heard of your own stories where someone who is not a volunteer, not a grassroots leader, not someone who is involved in any of the GROs, will of their own volition care for their neighbor. And I think this is the spirit we want to build up. It is not success for PA's mission only because someone becomes a volunteer with us, or only because someone becomes a grassroots leader. But as long as we build a community of care, of compassion, one who looks after one another, whether you're a different race or different gender, different ethnicity, it doesn't matter, that we care for one another. I think that is our measure, that's our KPI of success. So neighbors looking out for one another, residents helping one another, like you see in the examples here. You look at Mr. Johari, cooking and distributing porridge on his own accord during Ramadan. I know we do it, I know we organize it, I know MAAC does a lot of it, but it is so heartwarming to hear of people on their own accord doing it because they believe that they want to share the goodwill that they enjoy and they want to pay it forward. Or you look at Derek, who has taken part in a hackathon organized by Impact, and on his own then, he organizes his own workshops for another 90 participants. Or what about Mr. Sami? You look at Mr. Sami on the right. He is himself in a wheelchair. He was disabled. But when one of his neighbors fainted, he administered first aid and called ambulance, despite his own difficulties. So the power of the human spirit and the strength of mind over matter is significant. He has overcame his own limitations to help someone who was in need. And if you are able to use our next bound of PA, our own framework, our policies, our levers, our programs, to try to get more of these people to come forward and to be compassionate and to be caring, I think we would have found success. So this is really a call to action, call to others, and a call to inspire people in our residence community to step forward. So when we spoke about all this and we launched the broader PA movement, we spoke about volunteers, we wanted RNs to engage residents on what they wanted to see and so on. All of this feeds into the ethos of trying to build a stronger community. Now, with that, before I finish off, and by the way, I hope you're ready with your dance, finishing soon. Now you know why it doesn't always pay to be a winner in Kahoot. You never ask first what's the prize. I wanted to share with you that we have taken some care to refresh our PA mission and vision statements. And I'm going to give you a sneak peek of what they are. We spend a lot of time trying to wordsmith this. Right? I know people will have different view. Why you use this word? Why is it not framed like that? And so on. We spend a lot of time doing this. We discussed with a previous prime minister, our previous chairman, who gave us a lot of suggestions. But let me tell you what we settled on. So the refreshed mission statement reads, spark and nurture community participation for a caring and united Singapore. I think this reflects what we want to achieve as a mission. Why? Because we want to do things. So to spark, to inspire, to nurture, to inculcate, to bring people forward, and to be a doer. So PA must be a doer. Action. We want to spark, we want to nurture. If you have something in you, we want to bring it to life. You have some talent, some aspiration, we want to nurture it better. We want everyone to be part of this, so it's a community participation. What I said just now, trying to bring people together, not just PA, top-down, telling people, but it can also be bottom-up. So community participation. What's the objective? I think today, the two perhaps most important qualities for our country moving forward is a country of care and a united country. Care because I think we've just come through COVID. We've seen how important that is. That gives you one micro example how Singapore distinguishes itself from other countries. We are one of a handful, very small handful of countries who came through COVID more united than before COVID. Most countries, including all the big countries like the UK, US, many parts of Europe, were broken apart and more disunited after COVID than before. Going through a crisis, we emerge actually much stronger. So when people say we are much stronger after the crisis, it actually is true, statistically. So a caring Singapore lends itself to a united Singapore. And a united Singapore is so important in today's context when everyone around us is not just disunited, but actively trying to forge conflict and find reasons to disagree with one another. So all in all, I think this represents a very important mindset about our direction. What is the vision? I think the vision flows from the mission. So ultimately, a nation that cares for our community. PA is responsible for building social cohesion. Care must be at the heart of this social cohesion. So a nation that cares for our community, people who come forward, take part in a formal system, informal system, ad hoc, sporadic, occasional, doesn't matter. All of that adds together and it means caring for our nation. So this refreshed mission and vision statement is really just a preview for your eyes only. I will announce it later this year at the COM seminar, and I'll also explain to all our grassroots leaders and to our GRAs why we have chosen this and what we mean by all this. But I wanted to share this with you so that you will be able to think about it and also in your own way reflect on how you think in your own field of work within PA, you will be able to carry this mission through. Whether you're making policy, you're involved in building management, or in finance, or in grassroots programming, or you're in the field, in the COs, all of you will have different ways of carrying out this mission and seeing the vision come to life. So I encourage you to think about it, reflect on it individually and also with your teams. Finally, I want to add that these are, of course, words. And we spend a lot of time wordsmithing this, which is important because it must have meaning. But it has to be very much beyond words too. It has to be all about action. When we make all these nice slogans, it sounds nice, has a good ring to it, but we must carry it through in what we do. Right? So it has to be reflected in our day-to-day and what we do. All right? So I'm going to have a dialogue with you, but before that, For the first time in a long time, Hin Chong is completely speechless. I've known him for so long, and every time I work with him, he's always got something to say to me. Now he looks speechless. And the other two winners don't. I saw where you are. You're okay? Okay, you organize, huh? So after the dialogue on stage, don't prolong the dialogue by asking more questions. Okay, thank you very much.